A federal judge has struck down key parts of President Trump's executive order restricting mail voting, and the ruling is being described as a broad rejection of the administration's attempt to reshape how Americans cast their ballots. The decision came from Judge Indira Talwani, a federal judge in Massachusetts, who declared crucial components of the executive order unlawful, null, and void. At the heart of the ruling is a straightforward constitutional argument: the executive branch simply does not have the power to control elections. Judge Talwani put it plainly in her written opinion, and she even underlined the words for emphasis: the Constitution does not grant the president any specific powers over elections. So what exactly was in this executive order? Signed by President Trump back in March, it directed the Department of Homeland Security to compile state-by-state lists of citizens to help determine who is eligible to vote. It also called on the U.S. Postal Service to verify voters using lists provided by states, essentially pulling the Postal Service into the business of overseeing mail voting. Earlier this month, the Postal Service had actually moved forward with a proposed rule that aligned with many of those demands. The legal challenge was brought by more than 20 Democratic attorneys general representing states across the country. And Judge Talwani sided with them on two major provisions. First, she found that the authority to create voter eligibility lists belongs to the states alone, not the federal government. She also raised practical concerns, questioning whether federal records could even keep up with things like name changes after marriage or when people move between states. Her conclusion: federal agencies simply lack the ability to build complete and accurate citizen lists for every state. On the Postal Service specifically, she was equally direct. No law passed by Congress, she wrote, gives the Postal Service authority to control mail-in voting or to issue binding regulations on it. The ruling also addressed the question of whether states had actually been harmed, yet a key legal threshold. A separate case in Washington, D.C. had initially declined to block the order, finding that because it hadn't fully taken effect, no one had suffered real injury yet. Judge Talwani reached the opposite conclusion. She found that states were already being forced to respond. Connecticut, for example, had already pulled election workers off other duties to begin planning for compliance. And nearly half the plaintiff states had already purchased mail ballot envelopes that didn't meet the new requirements. The White House pushed back. Spokeswoman Abigail Jackson defended the order's legality and said the administration is confident that we will ultimately prevail. She also reiterated the administration's push to pass its priority voting legislation, the Save America Act, through Congress. That effort took on new urgency this week when President Trump canceled the signing of a bipartisan housing bill, demanding that Republicans first pass the voting legislation instead. This ruling lands just a day after Postmaster General David Steiner confirmed in a Senate hearing that the Postal Service's proposed rule would block mail ballots in states that refuse to hand over voter data to the federal government, though Steiner has also said repeatedly that the service will follow court orders. Multiple lawsuits challenging this executive order are still working their way through the courts, so this is unlikely to be the final word, but for now, a federal judge has drawn a firm constitutional line between presidential power and the administration of American elections. That's the story. Stay informed, and we'll see you next time.